But even more worrying is the manner in which Hindutva individuals are following the example set by the Modi regime by terrorizing Indian migrants from Muslim and Sikh communities throughout the diaspora. It is illustrated in graphic detail by the orchestrated attacks that were carried out against Muslims by Hindus in the UK city of Leicester earlier this year. And we have also seen Hindus attack Muslims in California and Hindus attack Sikhs in Australia. I'm talking about Naperville because Muslims living there have not only come under attack from Hindutva radicalized migrants in recent years, but also from the Hindutva movement in faraway India, which demonstrates just how far the tentacles of hate have spread outwards and across oceans from New Delhi and Gujarat under Modi. But let's start with a video that surfaced online last week. It shows a 16-year-old son of Indian Hindu migrants setting fire to the Quran in Naperville. I'm sharing his hateful act because it's symbolic of the growing influence of Hindutva movement in the Chicago area. You see, it was exactly 2 years ago when the Islamic Center of Naperville announced its plan to construct a new mosque in the area to meet the needs of the city's growing Muslim population. The move was met with what local media called unprecedented resistance, after Hindu organizations and individuals organized a barrage of complaints against the proposed mosque.
ICN's plan calls for its 13-acre site to include a mosque, school, multi-purpose hall, gymnasium, and an expansion on the mosque over a 5-phase 40-year span. But before ICN can start construction, they'll have to go through Naperville's Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. That means they'll also get a chance to listen to input from community members, and there's an unprecedented amount of it. Over 11,000 people have submitted their support and opposition for the project, but the majority...
Today, plans for the mosque remain on the drawing board and wrapped up in ongoing lawsuits, all because Hindutva groups use social media to generate opposition from outside the Naperville area.
These centers allow us to avoid that, the overpopulation, and also helps with the traffic flow.
The woes of Muslims in Naperville and the rest of the state are compounded by the recent re-election of Democratic Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy, who not only showers effusive praise on Narendra Modi, but also has ties to the Hindutva paramilitary organization RSS and its American affiliate HSS.
The HSS is the international wing of the RSS, a nearly 100-year-old paramilitary in India that has perpetrated assassinations, including of Gandhi, terrorist bombings, and massacres, particularly Muslims and Christians. The HSS here in America doesn't advertise its ties to the RSS, and perhaps that's why the city of Chicago awarded the HSS a proclamation praising it in January of this year. Despite the city's $17 billion budget, you didn't bother Googling for 5 seconds to discover that the HSS is connected to a fascist paramilitary.
Unfortunately, however, the wider American public remains asleep to the growing influence of Hindutva organizations throughout the Western democratic world.
So when people talk about the RSS ideology, do you understand why some people are afraid? They look at the past, they look at the history. MS Golwalkar, for example, former leader of the RSS, one of its most influential voices, someone both you and the Prime Minister have described as inspirational. He was inspired, he says, by Nazi Germany, which displayed, he said, a race pride at its highest and was a good lesson for use in Hindustan, in India. He said the 3 main threats to India, internal threats, were number 1, Muslims, number 2, Christians, number 3, communists. He referred to India's Muslim menace and to India's Christians as bloodsuckers. Do you understand why people are nervous when they hear the RSS, when they see people like Golwalkar behind?
This is the ideology growing among Hindu migrants throughout the Indian diaspora. It must be exposed and confronted, which means we have a duty to pressure political leaders into disavowing the Hindutva ideology and movement. Because what's happening in Naperville today is also happening throughout the rest of the United States, Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom.